Hey, today would like to talk to you guys about final cleanup. It's a pinch cup I made, and it's got an X-sized skull on one side and an in-sized skull on the other side. If you look closely though, you'll notice that it's kind of rough. There's some rougher areas, and if you're a perfectionist, like I am, unfortunately, you want to clean up those areas. So how do you do it? What's your final cleanup look like? Well, you need a cup full of water, and you need a stiff bristled brush. It's a brush that the bristles are kind of springy. So nothing like that's going to be floppier or longer hair brush. You need one that's got some spring to it, because that's going to help you clean it up. So you're going to get some water on here, and stir up some of that slip. And this piece is pretty leather hard. I let it get leather hard before I carved it, because that's what you're supposed to do. And now I'm just brushing some of that, I'm just stirring up some of that slip and brushing it around the surface. And you can see it's making it really much smoother than it was. It's not going to hide all your mistakes. I mean, if there's some really deep gouges, you could end up having to go back and just recarve those areas. One thing to be careful of though is not going too far. With this technique for cleanup, I've seen really nice carvings completely disappear because people just brush over the whole thing. Don't do that, right? You did a fairly nice job carving it. I'd hate to see it just turn into a featureless mess. This is just to get some of the little clay boogers that are hanging out on there, to get those to calm down, to get some of your carving marks to be a little bit calmer. Not all of this is going to play a big part. Once I cover it with glaze, it would definitely help that to go away. But if I want to really make sure, you can see that that's a whole lot smoother than the roughness that's in this one. Okay, so same deal for this one. I'm just carefully getting the brush bristles right in the corners, brushing over the tops of rough areas that I see. The more water you use, the more of an effect you're going to have on the clay. So don't go too crazy. Take your time. Don't use a ton of water. Be very selective about how you brush. I don't want to hit this corner too much because I really dug that loop tool in nicely, and I feel like if I lose that edge, it's going to mute the overall effect. Sharp edges aren't good in general for glaze. The glaze tends to break over the edge, and those can actually chip off if they're too sharp. So I'd say everything should have a little bit of a rounded corner or a bull nose to it, but you can see that really calmed down. There's still some grog spots in here. I could go a little bit more on those. Stir that slip and just push it down into those grog holes. But that's a pretty nice, clean, finished look. As a final step, you can kind of take your thumb and even push some of that clay down even further. Now that it's a little bit wet, it makes life a lot easier. So that's final cleanup. You should probably do that as a last step, especially if you've used a lot of tools that have caught a lot of burrs or thrown a lot of clay up to the surface. Just brush them back down. We have bigger brushes, smaller brushes. Just remember, stiff bristles, and that's how you do final cleanup. It's now ready to go back and dry out and get ready for bisque.